Legacy is what you pass down to your children and to your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone. Many hope to create it. Many more hope to live up to it. Very few ever succeed. The legacy of this show hopes to be about what Westeros means to us, and what we hope it may mean to a new generation of fans, and the generation after that. Boasting discussions that will endure, passions that will rise, debates that will make the small council jealous. With a combined 44 years of experience behind a microphone, the hosts and guest hosts of this show are dedicated to the fans' experience in reviewing anything from Westeros, Essos, and beyond. This group is not the house of a lion, a direwolf, or even a dragon. This is a fraternity, a lineage, a house that endures beyond sigils, and aims to leave a legacy no other podcast has. So it's time to call the Banos, for this is the House of the Empire.
And just like that, 10 years have passed since the last time you saw us. Sort of. I think I might have got mixed up there somewhere. This is House of the Empire, and we are doing a spoiler review to Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, Episode 6. We're past the prologue now, fellas. I got some feelings about this episode, but first off, how you guys doing?
Just got off. Did I do it? Did I do it this time? I'm doing pretty good. I'm having a pretty good day. Good day at work. Everything's good. Ready to go. I'm ready to talk about this episode. It's very interesting. Lots of opinions about this episode for sure. I think can't imagine anyone watched it and didn't have a polarizing opinion of some sort. You know, like it wasn't. I don't think anyone walked away like, yeah, kind of an episode there. So. No, Johnny?
No, man, I'm excited to talk about this. It was I'm enjoying it a great deal. I mean, I definitely have some issues.
I messaged Kieran about this today. Let's see. We're going to see where those issues go. But
I'll say this, prerequisite, I have not talked to him in any way about any of these issues. So if he accurately predicted what issues I have, I'd say, duh, he's known me for like 30 years. But... I definitely do have some issues, but we'll get into those as they become appropriate. But otherwise, I'm excited. I can get past my issues and enjoy the episode, and it was still good. I enjoyed it. I like seeing some of these events that, played out over the course of the episode and doing the time jump and seeing things. And I'm excited to talk about it. I literally just finished the episode about 5 minutes before we got here. So... I was a late watch this week.
I guess that makes sense why you didn't confirm whether you watched it or not. We were just saying, like, when we met up earlier, we were like, we don't even know if Johnny's going to be here because he didn't say if he watched it or not, but that would make sense now.
I'm confirming I've watched it now where it's appropriate.
Let me confirm, or sorry, let me just dive into a little bit of our other staff here for a second. Tommy B seen it. I don't think he was very high on it. Big shock. Mike, our boy Mike Bish, is not feeling well at the moment, so thoughts are with him. Mike, get better soon. Don't push yourself to do tomorrow night, man. I know you'll probably be listening to this tomorrow. Take the night off, or else you're not going to have a voice. And I'm forgetting somebody. All right, Mr. Honeymoon guy, Zach. Whenever you hear this, man, hopefully the honeymoon is going as planned finally. Or at least the new plan, whatever that is. And I don't know how he felt about the episode. So
that sounded like you were jealous there for a second, like Mr. Honeymoon guy.
Absolutely, I could use.
Guy goes and takes a honeymoon. What the hell?
How dare him while House of the Empire is airing, reviewing House of the Dragon. Anyways,
Say that 10 times fast.
no thanks. Okay, so the 10-year time jump. Let's just dive into this. Let's talk about in my opinion, the two most jarring. I don't know jarring, but the two most noticeable things, and that is the switch. We have Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook in, and is it Emily Carey and
Oh, I can't believe you're trying to blank on her. Of
I'm
all
forgetting.
the people,
Yeah, what's the name again?
Millie
Emma Darcy in?
Millie Alcock.
Oh, Millie
That's it.
Alcock out. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike's girl. Speaking of which, there's some news on those two, and Ryan Condal, showrunner, came out today with Variety and said at the moment there is no plans to bring them back. They're not closing the door on it, but in terms of the way season 2 is constructed, and they said they basically have season 2 set. That actually, so before we dive into the episode, I want to talk about this news right off the top. I almost forgot. So season 2 is basically set. They know exactly where they're going with it and how they want to approach it. So it's not that those actresses can't return, as we've seen some flashbacks in Game of Thrones. I just don't know if it'll be as in your face as I thought it could have been, a la Arrow or something. But it doesn't sound like they're going to do that. I mean, they're not going to do that. Ryan Condal came out and said they're not going to do that. He also said, unsurprisingly, the time jumps will stop after season 1. No more jumping years. And I know there were some people under the impression that they're just going to keep up with this pace and that's how the show will be done in 3 years. I'm going to reiterate what we've said. I think most of us have been on the same page here at the channel, is HBO's got some say in what happens here. And if they want Matt Smith and company around for 4 or 5 seasons instead of 3 seasons, especially with what happened with the main show, that is more likely to happen than not happen. It's a matter of how they're able to stretch out certain storylines and some things that they can do differently. And as Johnny alluded to off the top, they do some stuff differently in this episode. So we'll definitely dive into that. But fellas, the actress switch, how'd you guys handle it?
Really okay. I just, I said last week I would have liked to see, the younger versions start the episode and then we get a jump very early in the episode. Obviously, we didn't do that. We just jump right in. And if you haven't been watching previews and don't understand the time jumps, you would be very confused right out of the gate, having no idea what you're looking at. But obviously, those of us here were well prepared for this, knew it was happening at some point during this episode. So I'm okay with it because they look appropriate. Like they don't look so drastically different that you can't imagine the younger versions as growing up to look like, the older versions. Whereas some casting from, young versions of character to old versions of the character are so drastically different that it's jarring. This obviously isn't and felt appropriate for me.
I thought that the actresses who play Allison looked very alike, and they did a really good job. But I feel like the actress and actor that play Rhaenyra don't really look that alike. But I mean, they wear a blonde wig, so I got who it was right away. It wasn't like I was like, "Oh, who is that?" Like,
I don't disagree. Millie has a very prominent jawline and chin.
She's got that Ron Perlman thing going on. Her like jaw kind of like comes.
That's not a comparison I wanted, but it's not wrong.
I think they I think those two actually do look a little bit alike, but it's.
I think to me it's just like the rounding out of maturity, right? Like she's aged and her face is sort of fleshed out more. That you can still see. You can still see Millie looking in her face where, her face is more prominent and more. And I mean, look, pictures of ourselves, we all look, some features look far more prominent that just sort of decrease in prominence as we grow and age and go through our maturity and all of those things. So I have no issue with that. And yes, it is a very prominent difference, but it's appropriate for aging up a character. Like, there's no it'd be different if it was in reverse, right? Like, if old version of Rainier had the jaw and cheek, prominence, and the younger version didn't. Like, you can age that up and make it less prominent as you age, whereas the other way wouldn't happen that way. You don't grow into a prominent jawline or prominent cheekbone without going through significant, weight changes or things like that. So,
yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, it wasn't like, oh man, who is that? Like, I knew, so it was okay. But
I actually think they do look alike. Maybe not the performers, but like when you take young Rhaenyra and put her beside older Rhaenyra, I think there's a strong resemblance there. I think the problem is Olivia Cook and Emily Carey. Like, have you guys seen them at the red carpet premiere? They they look damn near identical. So I think when comparing the two in contrast,
it's Emma that's the most jarring, seeing her in media appearances and stuff. That the first time I ever saw her in a media appearance, I was like, who's that supposed to be? Like, who is that? Then you see the name and it's like, what? No, huh? And then you learn more about the actress, the person playing the role, and it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think again, I just think that the two playing Allison, as Kieran pointed out, are just like, I don't
Uncanny.
know if you could have cast two more similar looking actresses to play that part
without having actual blood.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm assuming they're not related. I think they would have made a point of putting that.
Oh yeah, I think they definitely would have made a big deal about that
in media circuses. But yeah, no, I think I honestly, the biggest thing with Rhaenyra early on was, like, not only is it a callback to the scene that we see with her mom Emma, and like almost identical. Like, if you want to put anything out there, Emma Darcy in her Rhaenyra getup is, I don't know the actress that played out. Sorry, not Emma Darcy. Emma Aaron. Bloody hell, there's too many of the same names, guys. There's a guy named Eddard in this episode too, so like, fuck. Emma Aaron, when she dies in child labor, and then even before that, we kick off with her making the comment in the pilot about Rhaenyra smelling like a dragon. I thought, when you look at those two scenes and the performances, I thought, I don't know if it was done intentionally. I haven't watched the inside the episode, but I thought that was their way of being like, hey, this is Rhaenyra. And I thought it was a wonderful way to introduce the character. And honestly, I know some people might not have cared for this scene here where they're walking all the way through, but I thought that when you look at the way Emma Darcy plays Rhaenyra, it feels like Millie Alcock's Rhaenyra. Yeah, a little more, shall we say, stubborn and probably scarred a bit physically and emotionally. But I totally bought that was Rhaenyra, and I love the sequence of her just being like, "You're, over my dead body. You're gonna have to carry." Sorry, I think she says, "You're gonna have to carry me down these stairs if you don't want me to go." And Rhaenyra goes. So I really dug.
Yeah,
that.
you could tell this is more of a, like, this Rhaenyra has been through a lot in that 10 years, and is like full on in fighting mode. She's probably a little less like adventurous and like, she seems like she's having fun when she's younger. I don't think she's having as much fun these days. So that's what it seems.
I think that's a good way to put it. What do you guys think of that opening sequence, though, where we walk all the way through? Oh my God!
Gotta love that we started with childbirth again.
Yeah, they showed a lot too. Can't say I've ever seen the cord cut in a TV show.
I was laughing at that because I remember when my brother was born in my house, and I remember being like, "What the hell is that thing?" So, Yeah.
Man.
I was only 5, and I remember it vividly. Like, what the fuck? Although I don't think I said that when I was 5. You know. Anyways, yeah, very, yeah, and like just at the end of the scene when they're walking back through the hall and you see all the blood on the floor and like, yeah, it was pretty crazy. And also the thing about that scene was the queen right away wanting to see the baby and her being like, oh, like there was definitely
And
like, oh
here is
fuck
number
that
1
bitch.
on Johnny's
And
issues.
And Allison obviously has turned into a complete bitch. Like right away, you're like, oh my god, what a bitch.
This brings us to
Johnny
number
issue
1
number
on
1.
the Johnny's issues of this episode, and that is the fact. Okay, was that a focus or a stop talking hand?
No, it's
okay.
it's focus. Go on.
It's the fact that in the book there's a reason for that. In the lore and the history, there's a reason for that. In the show, there is not, and that is the fact that the second-born prince of Alicent and Viserys is the same age as the third-born son of Rhaenyra and Laenor. They share a nursemaid, so that they can be raised as brothers on the king's decree. That's why Alicent sends. That's why they, are brought together so soon after birth in the history, is that they are raised together as brothers, sharing a nursemaid. Obviously, you can't do that because we see, is it Aemon is the younger brother? Clearly, he's already like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And here we have Joffrey being just born. That is a huge change that I don't like because it is so drastic.
All right, so I'm gonna preference this by saying, please, nobody get hurt feelings about this. That is a change. It's a pretty big change in terms of like the age. It's not one of the places I thought you were going with the changes. But at the same time, the characters that we've met in the show and how things have played out till now, there is no fucking chance Rhaenyra would ever be like, yeah, I'm gonna put my kid with your kid. And even though she proposes the marriage in the episode, it's not because oh, I just want everything to be fine and happy. No, there's definitely, say what you want about Allison, who's is really something else in this episode, putting on her best Cersei impression. Now I get why they used her dialogue in the oh my god, I'm killing myself with words here tonight, guys.
In the audition.
Thank you. Bloody fuck.
For me, I always interpreted that as it was the king's decree. That's the one person she can't go against.
Reference that a little bit too.
Well, I just meant in the raising them together, right? Because you're right. There's like Rhaenyra doesn't do that. And I don't think in the book it was Rhaenyra that proposed wedding the daughter to Aegon, not to Aegon, to
the cousins.
Jaehaerys is the oldest. Jace is the oldest, yeah. I think. Okay, so wedding Jaehaerys to Jaehaerys. It's confusing when they have literally the same name separated by one middle syllable.
This is why I did this. This is why I did this for today. I got all the actors pulled up.
You know what? I
should have that.
I was doing badass with remembering everybody's names through 5 episodes. I was good. Hardly ever had a slip on here. And then they go and introduce 8 fucking children in one episode, basically.
And all of them have very similar Aegon, Aemon, Jaehaerys. It's stop with the same syllables. It's confusing. Just wait until we get characters that share the same name.
Hey, old Valeria Corbin
really
guy,
confusing.
We're gonna name you Eddard for no good reason, but your name's Eddard.
That's the crappy part, is when they use, flagship names for unimportant characters. I think it's really confusing because you hear the name and your brain registers, and it's like, oh, you're irrelevant. I don't need to know you, but your name is important to me.
Yeah, okay, so that's not one of the things I thought you were going to have an issue with. So, I mean, I get why they do it. They're telling a little bit of a different story, and I think by now, if people haven't realized, they are really leaning into the Wow, this is embarrassing.
Unreliable narrator. I think he's frozen.
I was gonna say, is he frozen or is he just going really still?
Well, what was the next scene after that? Right after. You know what? Let's talk about the kids with the dragons, and the one child doesn't have a dragon. Do you see the scene where? Sorry.
Yeah, Aemon is the one without a dragon.
Yeah, and they gave him the pig with wings. Just the whole rivalry between the children is kind of interesting. I found that and then of course the sword fighting scene, which we'll get to later as well. Like, it was
It plays
pretty
properly,
interesting,
right?
Sorry?
I said it plays right because you have, Rhaenyra's kids and Aemon who are all, of similar ages. And then you have Aegon, who is considerably older, just, being an insufferable asshole.
Yeah, you could tell he's got the Targaryen male in him there. It's just like being a complete asshole.
This is where another thing issues for me is, did they age him? Like, did he get soap opera rapid aging? Because I feel like he should only be like 14 years old.
Yeah, he's 14 or 15.
And yet he's standing in a window masturbating. I don't remember doing that.
You didn't do that when you were 14?
Oh, are you kidding me?
Standing in a window? Hell no! I'm doing it in a corner, hiding, hoping nobody walks in.
Yeah, well, guess what? You're not the guy most of the world wants to be king, so he can get away with that.
Yeah, he can do whatever the fuck he wants.
It was jarring to see that though, and then
also it freaked me out because the age, like, this is supposed to be a 14-year-old kid. I don't be looking at his ass.
It was hilarious though that his mom came in and caught him. He was like, "Oh, no!"
She's more focused on basically poisoning him the same way that her dad poisoned her. So
worse, even.
Yeah,
because she was 18 when Otto sort of, oh God, I hate to say it this way, but whored her out basically to the king, and here she is taking this young, early pubescent male and forming him into a bastard king.
I mean, in stories like this, you're 14, you're 15, 16, you're kind of getting there. Like this is like you're out there fighting if you need to be. You're like, it seems to me like, that's, being an adult male is kind of comes around like 15, 16 in this world. So he's pretty close, right? Like, how old was Rob and John when John went to go to the wall? He wasn't 18, right? I
think he was 17.
Yeah, he was
17?
almost there in terms of even the books to the shows have different ages too. Then so on the original series, it's something that they tend to do, and but it is what it is. I'm assuming you guys both knew he was going to be in it, but gotta say, and I know most people won't have this take. 10 years later, considering how Viserys was doing, I'm going to say he's not doing all that bad at the moment.
Yeah, it seemed like he should be dead. He's definitely nearing that, I think. I mean, he's missing an arm, so that's there. And I still remember. Sorry?
I'm assuming they amputated it to just try to stop the infection.
Yeah. Well, I still remember when we first saw him, wasn't the first wound that we saw on his back?
Yes.
That oozing wound.
Yeah, he had the lesion on his back.
You would think with that his torso would be all torn up and he should probably be dead by now. I think you should be pretty happy to be alive right now. But except his family is always pissing him off and can't.
Right.
He's just so you're 10 years later. Oh yeah, his life's still shit. He still can't get his family in order. He's got his grandkids fucking beating each other up and bullying each other now. And he's watching up there in this scene. He's watching up there while they train together. He's like, this is so great. My family's together. They're all training together. And, oh, what's that? The one side kids are bigger and meaner and fucking bullying the other kids. And, oh, that's right. We got this guy who I kind of in the back of my mind know is their father, but I'm trying to deny it in my head, fighting with Sir Kristen, and like he's like, oh shit, fucking family's gone to shit again. Like
Seems like
Just-
a. Sorry, go ahead, Kieran. I thought you were done.
it's just funny that he never like he's the most peaceful king by far that we've seen, and he just has to deal with all this shit. He's got like a sitcom type of thing going, right? Like he just always has to deal with his family's bullshit.
Yeah, totally agree. How are we all feeling about one Kristen Cole now? I
He's
don't
still a bitch.
know. Now I will agree with your earlier sentiments.
It's very interesting. Like I don't understand the character, and I would like to give it more time to understand. But I mean, obviously, yeah, he went psycho when his maybe not being honorable might get revealed. He went psycho and killed this guy. And now now he's obviously on the other side of this battle, of this rivalry between Alicent and Rhaenyra. But I don't understand him for 10 years not getting over this and still being very passionate about it. Like it doesn't, the character's not super relatable to me. So I'd like to dig deeper into it and maybe get a little bit more on why he's just so crotchety about it. But I don't know. The character himself, the character, for what he is, like, should still be interesting, should still have an interesting arc. I just don't, it's not relatable or believable to me. So I'm hoping we get a little bit more understanding on that.
Well, I got news for you, sir. It might not be relatable to you, but it's relatable to a lot of people out there who've been spurned by a lover in the past who went a different direction, and then their life. I won't say his life fell apart, but like he owes his life to Alicent after the last episode on 2 occasions. And
yeah, I dumped all my ex-girlfriends. I've never been dumped.
He's a bitter prick. And
I don't know anyone like that.
And yeah, so I don't know. He just seems like a gigantic piece of shit now. Although it's Game of Thrones, and I'm totally expecting them to throw another curveball that makes you go, okay, well, I kind of get where he's coming from, but no, expecting someone to just give away their inheritance and walk away from their duty, as Viserys would say, was asinine to think. And this dude is one gigantic see you next Tuesday.
That's putting it mildly. I can't, like, again, this, like I said last week, this is one of those times where the image you paint of a character is just completely turned on its head and thrown in your face, and they do all the same things but from a completely different way, and it's like I don't like it. Oh god, everything about Kristen Cole just makes me want to smack him in his face. Like when Harwin started pounding the piss out of him in the courtyard, I was just like, yes, give it to him. That sounded so
Game of Thronesy.
I was gonna say, this is a Game of Thrones show. I could be describing many different scenes there. But like, I was enjoying it so much, watching him get the tar beat out of him by Harwin, because he deserved it. Like everything he did was ridiculously, like, oh god. I wanted to reach through the screen and punch him when he started talking about Harwin and and making his illusions and getting to that moment. And it's another thing that bugged me about this, and this is just a minor gripe, not a historical gripe. If you are training the princes to be, fighters, teaching them how to fight, the Kingsguard is not going to be the only one to do it. Harwin Strong is the head of the City Guard. he's going to be a part of their training. Because he is, obviously, arguably the second strongest fighter. He's the strongest not in the Kingsguard.
But I wonder if Alicent had influence on that, right?
I mean, that's entirely possible. And I don't, deny that possibility. But, like, the way he acts is like that this is something that's never occurred before. Harwin's never been in court, when they are training the princes. And I find that very hard to believe, both from a qualification standpoint, but from the fact that he is clearly their father, and he would find a way to be there, even if it's just training in a different part of the courtyard.
Let's stick with this character, because I gotta say, Game of Thrones did that Game of Thrones thing where you start to like a character and you start to get a little attached to a character, and they take that character away from you. I think I always knew it was coming. I've done a really good job of avoiding fates for most of the characters, but like everybody knows just from the trailers the Daemon Rhaenyra bit, because it literally shows them during their ceremony in one of the trailers. So like, to me, he had to get out of the picture at some point, even though technically, officially, he wasn't really in the picture. Mm-hmm. I just wasn't expecting it to be that episode. Like, I thought, okay, let's get to the end of the season. I was really thoroughly enjoying his character, and he's been in several of the episodes, but the first couple he was in, as I think
he's pretty much been there. I think he's been in every episode to this point, even if just sitting in a background capacity.
Well, yeah, they did the Game of Thrones thing where they take the background character and make him to be something more. They did that with all the Strongs, really. And so to lose this one, to lose both of them, really, this soon, really, that was a bitter pill for me to swallow. That it's Game of Thrones. Don't get attached.
I knew what was coming. I just didn't know when it was coming. Just based on the timeline of certain events that, specifically, the Hand of the King, knowing who holds that title at different points. I knew that, obviously, if it isn't obvious, they set up Otto's return pretty heavily in this episode. So I don't think I'm talking too far out of time. I don't know if he's in the preview or not, but, obviously they set up Otto to return as the Hand of the King. I knew that was going to happen, but I didn't expect things to go quite the way they did. Like the fire at Harrenhal and, Rhaenyra returning to Dragonstone. Rhaenyra's return to Dragonstone is an event that should have happened pre-time jump. That I'll say. Because she was in Dragonstone when she got married. She had taken back her seat as Princess of Dragonstone and reclaimed Dragonstone as, a single woman before she married Laenor. But that's a minor gripe on the, gripe scale. But yeah, I knew it was coming, but I didn't expect it then, and I just loved all the interactions there with, with Harrenhal going up in flames. And
good people don't last long. In,
no, they don't.
And like these two, one's dead, and the other one definitely has an expiry date on him. And then
one's dead, and the other's dying.
Yeah, and it's yeah, I don't know, guys. It did that Game of Thrones thing. Like I said, it was kind of like, oh man.
I knew it was coming earlier in the episode just because they kept talking. Just because they kept talking about how honorable. Was it what's no, not Harwin, his father.
Oh,
Hand Strong. We'll call him Hand Strong.
Because they kept talking about how honorable,
Lionel.
Harwin. Thank you. They kept talking about how honorable Lionel is and how he wears his honor around his neck like a pendulum, and it's like, oh, he's gonna die in this episode. Honorable men don't survive in Westeros.
He also had the Ned Stark line to
which one?
To the kids, where he's like, "We'll see each other again, I promise." And Ned's line to Jon was, "Next time we see each other, I'll tell you about your mother, I promise." And and yeah,
make no promises.
I did think too at that point, like, oh fuck, he's not gonna see him again.
I knew he wasn't going to see them again, just based on the events. Like, I mean, I guess he could have seen them at Dragonstone in between, but I knew there was no prominent interactions with them from, them leaving Dragonstone, or for them. Well, I guess the kids were born on Dragonstone. That was the weird part, I think, in the book. But that again, that's relatively minor in the scale of things. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, this kind of leads its way. The fire kind of leads its way into the character that I thought was the most interesting. And I don't know if you wanted to go a different way with this, but I really want to talk about Larry Strong, because this was the character that jumped out of this episode. Obviously, being the right at the end, the big kind of heel turn promo there. I when I saw this character at first, when he was hanging out with all the women in the tent when he couldn't go hunting, and he was like, oh, I'm not much use, whatever. I don't really hunt because of my disability. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, Game of Thrones loves characters with disabilities and giving them power, which is, just it's cool all around. But I didn't know whether there was going to be an evil character or a good character, but I knew he was going to be a character that made a play in this, and I was pretty excited about it. And man, did he ever pull dude, guys, I'm an important character, look at me. That was a really cool turning moment where he's like, had to kill some family members, no big deal, had to don't worry about it. And the queen is horrified, which is crazy because Alicent seems like a character who is, willing to do what needs to be done, but not so far, not in this way, not this far. And he just stepped out into the light as a scary, important type character. He seems like not only a smart, scheming character, but obviously now a pretty viciously unfeeling, cold character as well. I was very impressed, and I kind of called it a little bit. I think I even on the last episode was like, this guy's going to do something. And yeah, he stepped right out there. He made himself known here. So I thought that was probably the most enjoyable part of the episode for me.
In the words of Johnny's best friend Terrence, this guy is a piece of shit. Wow, this guy makes Littlefinger look like little thumbs up. It's I know it was terrible. I know. No, this guy.
It was so bad. It was good though.
Yeah, it was so bad. It was funny.
This guy. The hints were all over last episode, and even the episode before, really, that this guy might be trouble. And I think clearly he's a lot more than just trouble. And I think guys like him are what lends to the the unreliable set of events that are told in the future. Is not everything is truthful. And I'll say this: there's some people complaining that when you watch the episode before that, he's buddy with both his brother and his dad, to the point where he's pointing things out to his brother during the wedding ceremony. And to do the 10-year time jump and then him do that, I mean, maybe it speaks more about the character, but at the same time, because he made that time jump, it's a little harder to connect. Oh, he just offed them, but last episode he was buddy, and we didn't really get to experience any of that. I do think you run into some issues with stuff like that when you do a 10-year time jump.
Yeah, I think you're right. You definitely don't see sort of the cracks in the family because they are painted as sort of a I don't want to say a normal family, but there aren't any issues with them to the point that when we see Lionel suggesting husbands for Rhaenyra a few episodes back, he makes a point of not suggesting his own son, and they have a decent enough relationship. We see them together. Obviously, they have that bond. I would have liked to have seen more of that intermingling of their relationship, but Laris definitely stepped out and said, "I'm a player in this episode." I knew he was a player, but I was waiting for that moment where everybody else would know he's a player, because to that point he was just sort of, that guy with the club foot that everybody looks past, which was to the benefit of the character. But, I was waiting for this moment. I don't know if I expected it to be this moment. I don't remember the book making it clear that, he had been the one who orchestrated the fire at Harrenhal. I mean, I know there was whispers of that. It was rumored, but nobody ever knew for sure, which speaks prominently of the character, that he was able to do something like this and have it remain, who did it? Question, because every major death we've ever seen that has been attributed to another person, we have learned the truth eventually, even as far as, arguably the biggest whodunit at the time in Game of Thrones was who poisoned Joffrey, and obviously we come to find out who did that, and in a big way, so I enjoyed that. I like the difference of him actually being able to play within the whispers, play in the silence, and I look forward to seeing more of Laris Strong. Not less.
The idea that he uses these prisoners to do his dirty work was kind of neat too.
And then the cutting out of the tongue, that's a callback to Joffrey, and only this time they show up much more prominently.
It's an ironic or it's an ironic foreshadow if you know the lore, which I like. I enjoy that sort of playing in the this thing happens and then this thing happens. They're not actually tied together, really, but they are, and it's fun.
Maybe he'll hang out with Damon and they'll talk about how much they love cutting people's body parts off. Maybe they'll get together and have like a little broski moment and be like, yeah, I love cutting body parts off people.
How do we feel about Damon's arc in this episode, guys?
It's interesting because it paints him in a way, like, he's been painted as a bad guy and he's been painted as a guy who just goes to beat his own drum, which are, quite often just the way you look at it. Like some people are going to look at him and be like, he does his own thing and that he does what, he's not necessarily a bad guy. And then there's other people like, this guy he's a bad guy. Like, and I think in this way we step back more towards the, like, he's just a guy. He's just a guy who does things that he wants to do. And, he's not necessarily a bad guy. And you can see that he, tried to do right by his wife in some respects. And obviously he's not really a guy for marriage. And that was kind of put out there too. And yet he's still, doing better than his first marriage. So
he actually consummated this one.
Yeah, and he was like really, obviously he did look genuinely upset when his wife decided to burn herself alive. So I feel like it painted a little bit more, like it brought him a little bit back towards the center from the the line of being a good character, a bad character. It brought him back into the middle to just being like someone in the middle. Maybe he's an anti-hero at some point instead of just being your classic hero. Maybe he turns out to be part of. I don't want to say the good side because that in Game of Thrones there's not really a good side and a bad side most of the time. But yeah, I feel like it brought him back towards the middle. And so it's interesting how they keep kind of flip-flopping between, like, he's just a weird guy, he's a terrible person. Well, he's not really a terrible person when you think of it in terms of the things that go on in Game of Thrones. So I enjoyed it. I thought it did a little bit of character work. You got a little bit more into the character. some of these things may play a part in the future. And I was fairly happy with it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very nice character piece. It was something different. It did peel back the curtain a little bit. I've always kind of found his character to be somewhat in the middle, definitely selfish, but and misguided, but also very misunderstood by many. And I thought this episode did a good job of showing that, hey, say what you want about this guy, but he's always stood by. He loves his family, and this includes his wife and his kids, even though he might have some favoritism towards one over the other at the moment. Um, but I thought the shock of when he sees his wife go up by Vagar was very, very well acted. It wasn't just bursting out in tears or whatever. It was almost like this deep look of regret on Matt Smith's face, without going hysterical, which I don't know many actors that can pull that off. And I thought he did a wonderful job yet again, even though he didn't have a ton to do in this episode. I thought that was cool. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. It was really cool to see Vagar fly. I thought they did a very good job of depicting just how big that dragon is compared to Daemon's dragon, and even dating back to Daenerys's dragon. Like, that dragon is noticeably larger. It looks like Godzilla with wings. That's what I thought when I was looking at. Is it Lena? Lena's the one that went up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you see the emotion in the dragon's eyes, which I was always a big fan of with Game of Thrones. I thought that they did a really good job of showing Drogon specifically, his emotion a lot during the show. And I like the dragon really doesn't want to do it until they have like that silent stare down with one another at the very end, where I think the dragon realizes that no, this is what she wants to do. So, it doesn't. I think the one thing that elevates the show when they're using dragons is not just, oh, look at the badass firework display that they can do and the cool action sequences. I thought some of the best dragon scenes in Game of Thrones were the ones that were lifted by emotional dynamic scenes, and I thought this was one of them. Sorry,
I
I'll
mean,
shut up.
you had a lot of that in this episode, though. I mean, in that moment there with Lena, but you also had it earlier with Jace trying to bond with the dragon. That was another one where the dragon's emotions were very relevant. And I enjoyed that a great deal as well. So you definitely got a lot of emotion from the dragons. But back to Lena and Daemon's relationship, it's unfortunate because to me, obviously, he obviously cared more about Lena than he ever did Rhea. There's no debating that. Obviously he stayed with her. They left Westeros together, went to the Free Cities. They ended up in wherever they ended up.
Pentos?
Was it Pentos they ended up? I couldn't remember which specifically, but they end up there and they're still together. And obviously they consummated the relation multiple times, enough to have 2 kids and about to be birthed a third. But it was the moment where she walks up to him on the battlement, and they have that moment where she sort of, where they talk about the relationship in a way that I think Daemon realizes that for the first time someone truly understands him. And that's something that very few people have been able to do. I mean, Rhaenyra understands him. Viserys does and doesn't, depending on who's whispering in his ear that day. But this was the first time that someone that isn't a pureblood Targaryen understands him. And I think that's what you see in the later scenes where he's realized that I'm missing something. I actually have a partner who understands me. And I think things would have played out much differently had she survived that childbirth. Not just because, obviously she was about to birth him a son, but, he understood, he realized that she understood him and loved him despite all of that. Knowing that she wasn't the wife he wanted, but, understood everything about him in such a way that I think their relationship would have been very different had she survived, but her not surviving, I think, plays importantly into the Daemon we see going forward. You know, this is a Damon who has now experienced loss in a way that matters to him. You know, losing Rhea, that, oh well. I mean, he did
Well,
it for God's sake.
He
You know, like,
caused it, yeah.
I mean, it's you know, and there are some that would argue that was a mercy killing. If he didn't provoke the horse, she was paralyzed from the neck down.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's not a
I
that's
still
not
took
a
away.
that's not something I'd
Yeah.
want to be in. You know, I wouldn't want to be that in medieval times. That's for damn sure. You know, that's
a lot of things in medieval times.
you can say that again.
I do really like that though. I want to point out specifically that she mentioned that, like, you know, she mentioned that she wasn't the wife that he wanted, but she mentioned that like he needs to be him. She loves him for who he is, and like, you know, sitting around studying in this town and staying there and moving there,
You're
which
better
was,
than all of this.
Yeah, like that's not you. You're gonna go fly your dragon and kill people, and you know you're an adventurous, you know, person. Like you're I don't want you to settle down in Pentos with your family, because that's not who you are. So that was like an interesting moment for their relationship, and then Game of Thrones happened and she's gone, so we don't get to dig deeper into that relationship, but it adds to his character. And yeah, it was it was interesting. You know, we've seen Daemon be mean and fight and cut people's limbs off and fucking quarter someone and drag him out of a cave. Like, we've seen all that stuff, but like, this was probably the best emotional insight into the character so far, which was cool.
I do find it poetic that they chose to do this in the same episode. All of a sudden, Damon's available, and all of a sudden, technically speaking, Rhaenyra is available, and we know where that goes, just because they didn't even attempt to hide it in the trailers, which I do think. I don't know how many casual viewers have viewed the trailers. Hopefully, not many, because I would have liked them to not put that out there for the casual viewer. Like, I'm assuming by now they can probably do the math that they've circled each other long enough to know that it's going somewhere. But the next episode, fellas, looks insane. And by all accounts, the cast and the crew and everybody sounds like they're treating the next episode almost like the penultimate episode of Game of Thrones. But also, it's not the penultimate episode. So what do you guys think of the preview if you watched it? Without, you know, giving anything away, I thought it looked badass.
I haven't watched it. I don't know if Kieran
I already
has.
watched half of it because I was like, I got up and I walked away, and then I was whatever, and I came back and I was like, oh, they're doing one of those preview things. So I can't really comment too much on it, but yeah, I don't know. One thing I want to quickly mention, I this episode made me realize how much I like Corlys Velaryon, because he wasn't in it, and I was like, where is he? The hell's he doing? Is he still alive? What the fuck? Like, I was like, I didn't really think I wasn't really stick out to me that I like that character that much, but I was like, where is he? Like, I want to see him. What's he doing? How come he's not here? So, is he dead, Johnny?
Do you actually want me to answer that? I could.
Yes.
He's
No.
alive.
He's very much alive.
No, he's alive. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
He's got a role to play.
Very much.
Good.
So. A big one.
Yep.
But
He better, because I like him. I like the actor
Not
too.
just going
So,
nowhere.
yeah.
I haven't watched it, but I feel like, is there a time jump between the next two? Because I certainly hope not.
I don't think if there is, it's like a couple of months. It's nothing fucking.
Okay. I
massive.
can live with that, because
Dude, I'm telling you, go watch the preview.
I
Go-
will once we're off the air. Obviously, I didn't have time to. But, you know, knowing the timeline, there are 3 big events that all happen in 1 year. 2 of those 3 events happened in this episode. The fire at Harrenhal and Lena's death. Both occur in the same year as a 3rd major event. So, if there's a time jump, I don't want it to be more than a few months. I need it to stay in the same year to keep the timeline appropriate because
I
you've
think that
already
might
with it
have
enough.
episode, so we'll see. I wonder if I can show it here since we're recording.
You've done
What?
it. I mean, I don't know. Would you be able to edit it out though without having the software? You need.
Well, I wouldn't need to edit it out. You can post. We couldn't monetize the video, so I mean, we could theoretically do a reaction to it if you guys wanted to, and I could post that immediately. But yeah, we'll save it. Actually, we'll save it. Guys, champion for this week. Who is it?
Fuck.
I don't have mine yet. Legitimately, I've been thinking about it all episode. I'm like, oh fuck.
Oh, I got mine. Mine 100%. No, like, no,
You know what,
like really quickly. Laris is the champion. Is it Laris or Larry's? I don't know how to say it.
I think it's Layers.
Laris?
I think
it's
Lionel's
Laris.
pronounced it Laris.
Laris is my champion 100%. Like
Although
I said, like
this
this character came out and was like, I'm the guy behind the shadows now. Like I am Littlefinger, or I'm one of those guys, and that means I'll probably be around for a while, and I'll probably be fucking shit up for people, and we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe he'll die in the next fucking episode. Who knows? But I feel like he'll be a thing for a bit, and then he'll
no comment.
We'll be really happy when he dies. When he
No
dies,
comment.
we'll be really happy. But anyways, he was awesome in this episode, and I thought he really killed it. Thought the actor killed it. He obviously was able to show that he has a couple different sides, a bit of range to his acting skills. And yeah, I was blown away. I thought it was awesome, and it was kind of the first time in this show that I had like a ooh like type of moment. Like most of it has been pretty straightforward and linear right now, so this was a surprise for me.
I wish I could just be like, I'm giving it to the Strongs.
That's not an option? Damn.
But because of that, because I really am
You
on
can
the
pick
fence.
someone that died.
It's got to be Harwin or it's got to be Lairs. It's one of the two. And I'm going with Harwin because I feel like Lairs or whatever the fuck his name is. I'm going with Lairs until I hear the episode again. I think he's going to have other opportunities to be the champion. And sadly, our boy Harwin is not. So I'm giving it to Harwin Strong.
This is just like when you get an Oscar post-mortem.
I'm going to say fuck the rules, and I'm going to pick the Harwin brothers. Because
No.
Yep. Fuck the rules.
No, we did it.
Fuck the rules.
God damn it, Johnny. I wish I could reach out through this camera and choke it to death.
It's fine, but they only get half a point. So when we add up the champions at the end,
Yeah, that's fine.
they're not
That's
both
acceptable.
getting a point. They're only getting a half a point. So
I'm okay with that.
Well, I
That's
think-
perfectly acceptable.
I think one of them is not getting any more points, so
he's stuck at half a point then.
David
wait, 1.5
beat
points
him in the
forever.
first episode.
Or is he
Well, that wasn't
coming
hard.
back? Wait, was that Harwin in Game of Thrones season 7 or 8? Oh man!
No, it
Anyway,
was Kristen that was reborn in Game of Thrones, not Harwin.
fun episode, guys. Had a blast. What do you guys give this episode out of 10? I feel almost criminal for going as low as a 7, but I can't give it a 7.5, so I'm going to do one of those old Game of Thrones scores from back in the day. I'm going to give it a 7.3. A 7.3.
Oh man, this is hard because like I said, when I texted Sean right after I knew that he had watched it too, I said, I don't know if this is a great episode, but I know it's setting up a great episode, I think. And we don't know until next episode to see if it gets pulled off in such a way. I'll give it a 7.5. I'll have the courage that Sean did not, and not just kidding. I'll give it a 7.5. I think a 7.5 is good.
Well, let me know if you've heard this one before, but I set a trend at the start, and we're still at that point, so it's an 8. That's right.
Johnny's running for office because there's no way 6 episodes into this fucking thing, every episode
Everything's an 8. I
I
know
wanna
what's
know
coming.
I don't even
think,
know
I think
what
now I'm
my.
going to start the steady incline after this episode. Like, I
I
picked
don't
8 as the
see a
baseline.
decline.
It could. I doubt it, but it certainly could.
You and
Every
30
episode
million
has sort
other
of
people.
been because, like you said, we called it the prologue for a reason. You know, it set the tone. It introduced you to the characters so that you'd understand events that happen as they happen, and it set the tone. So now here we are. This is the jumping off point, and it stayed flat. It wasn't better. It wasn't worse. It was just right on par. And now is where I think now we're gonna start going like this with the. Oh wait, that's backwards on the screen. So now we're gonna start going like this on the rating scale, I think. And I think next week we're gonna see a better episode, and then they're just going to continue getting better as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. So if next episode is 8, it means I liked it the same as the other episode, or a specific episode before this, that I just can't rate it higher or lower than that one. But, maybe next year I'll start my scale at a 5 and say fuck everybody. But, I'm staying with the 8.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of House of the Empire. Again, best wishes to Zach, who's off on his honeymoon, and to Mikey B, who's not feeling well, and T. Brad, whoever the fuck that hating little punk is.
He's off pulling his best Aegon impersonation.
That little golem.
Oh, I could see that.
Is that joke going over heads, or was it not? He's fucking himself.
Oh,
Aegon.
yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't think of that in that. I was like, yeah, he's jerking off at a window? Really? But yeah, fucking himself. Yeah, that's what he does.
He's fucking himself. Yeah.
A couple of these guys don't very impressed with Dragonstone.
Mom, do we have to live here?
Bottom right's just like, yeah, I can do this. Renee's like, home. The two behind her. Oh, fuck. Anyway,
hold on.
At least I brought my boyfriend.
Daenerys? Wow. Has Rhaenyra ever been to Dragonstone? Like, proper? I mean, she's been on the bridge, but I don't know if she's ever been in the keep.
I don't know.
She was raised in King's Landing.
I don't know. Good question. Maybe not. Maybe not. Good question. I'm sure we'll get it answered for us. Anyways, though, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of House of the Empire. Be sure to comment down below. What did you think of the episode? What did you think of our review of the episode? What would you like to see us do? There's going to be some content after the season ends. We probably got about 10 episodes worth of just different lists and shit that we'll be doing. So be on the lookout for all of that. House of the Empire is not going anywhere. Kieran, where can everybody find you at, man?
You can find me here tomorrow, probably. Maybe even hosting the show tomorrow. And you can find me. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I'm not really doing anything else right now. I'm not doing shit.
Johnny?
Oh, you can find me at twitch.tv/Bros Before Pros, streaming Monday through Thursday night.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And you can support the channel on Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. Join today because that is the way. We have a brand new episode up of Lampkin Lane. It was a lot of fun last night. We dove into Halloween, and I'm actually going to bump Kieran as host tomorrow simply because actually I think I'm bumping Mike. Halloween Ends trailer's coming out tomorrow, so that's going to be the focus of the show, that and wrestling. And I don't think we'll have time for anything else. We'll give you guys, have you guys seen Andor yet?
I've watched the first episode and a half.
Okay.
I watched the first 2.
The half is important. Think about that.
Well, half a point. I know that's
half
not
an
what
episode.
Oh, so you just do? Boy, you fucking. Anyways, give me a Game of Thrones saying.
In what
Game
context?
of Thrones saying? Winter's coming.
To what end?
Winter is coming. Winter is coming.
Yeah,
works for me.